My name is Zintis Hermansons. I work as a project expert at the ESPON EGTC. And today my aim is basically to briefly present two ongoing ESPON projects. So I'm not going to really give you, kind of insight on results, but just kind of a glimpse on what's going on because these projects are still ongoing. And this is more to serve as a let's say as a warm up for the presentations to come later in the afternoon. And Clara, I think you're going to help me with the screen sharing and turning the slides, right?
Yes, she will. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let me start by just saying a few words about the ESPON program because I think not everyone knows about ESPON, and perhaps there are some acronyms which need to be clarified. So ESPON is actually a program which started quite a long time ago in 2002, and it's one of the 4 interregional territorial cooperation programs with Europe. ESPON covers EU countries and now the 5 partner states as well. And the ESPON EGTC, which stands for European Grouping of Territorial Cooperation, is a kind of a secretariat which is based in Luxembourg. So I'm currently in Luxembourg, and we are sitting here and basically implementing the ESPON program. And you might know that ESPON has contact points in each country. So whenever you want to learn more about ESPON projects, feel free, to reach out to these contact points. And perhaps one also minor, remark is that let's say the ESPON stands for European Territorial Observatory Network, and it's sometimes a bit confusing because the acronym is kind of a bit different. Just a side remark. So the next slide. So the concept of ESPON program, we are basically doing research, and this is a demand-driven research. And demand is coming from the member states. So we kind of projects, applied research projects, which cover, which look at the whole Europe, and also targeted analysis projects, which let's say concentrate on particular regions or countries. And then we also have projects which are more technical in nature, which are related to tools, indicators, data gathering, estimations, and so on. And then, the aim is that something good comes out of this, and the policymakers can use this in the whole policy cycle whenever it concerns policy, implementation, monitoring, evaluation, and so on. So this is basically, in short, what we are doing. And now I'm gonna tell you more about the two ESPON projects which are related to today's topic of discussion. I'll start by ESPON Titan, which is about territorial impacts of natural disasters. The next slide, Flora Clara, yes. To mention some of the key milestones of the project. So the project covers not all natural hazards, but the focus is on floods, droughts, windstorms, earthquakes, and landslides. And this is mostly due to the scope of the project, the timing, and the resources available. And the main aim of the project is to look at the direct and indirect economic impacts at the regional level, which are caused by natural disasters. And it is going to be done basically at 2 levels, developing a global methodology to analyze pan-European trends with available data. So to have a global overlook. And then also the project will develop a local methodology which will use a more, let's say, local data sources, a more fine-grained, data to present the analysis at a very more detailed spatial level. And we have 2 pilot cases. And also the project will look into disaster risk management instruments and policies in the selected case studies, just to have an inventory and collect the best, let's say, good practices available. And the project is carried out by a consortium led by Technalia, and the team is really international, and I think very capable of doing such kind of project. So the next slide. Here you can see, let's say, a broad framework of what's being done in the project, and it's basically what I just mentioned. But to summarize, there are three big building blocks. One is on the left side is the methodology. So one of the tasks was to develop methodology, a global one and a local one. The second big block is obviously to come up as let's say some analysis at territorial level, which would give some territorial patterns and also territorial vulnerability, and that then should later translate in an overview of good practices and also suggestions for a territorial planning concerning the natural disasters and how to mitigate the impacts of these disasters. The next slide. And here I have some maps which I just copied out of the project reports, and I must say these are very fresh ones. The interim report came in last Friday, so I cannot really say much, but just to give you some insight, what has been already produced. And one set of maps will be related to territorial distribution of natural hazards. So basically looking where things are happening and what's the situation across Europe. And here's, as an example, I put the storm hazard map, which depicts the maximum wind speed for 3 second gusts at NUTS 3 level. And that kind of maps will be also provided for the other natural hazards analyzed in this project. And obviously you can see that the coastal areas are affected more than others in this case. The next slide. The project has also come up with an aggregated hazard map, which let's say aggregates the five hazards. And here they have done it in a way that they looked at the costs, damage costs related to these natural hazards, and these were used as weights, to aggregate these hazards. Previously, and I know many times it's done by expert opinions, when experts give their let's say opinion on the magnitude of the hazards and the importance. But in this case, the project decided to use the losses due to natural hazards, let's say, to better capture the importance of each of the hazard. So here you can also see that coastal areas are dominating, but that's because most of the damages are actually caused by storms and floods. The next map, or the next slide. The other part of the project is obviously the economic impact analysis, and here I have a brief framework of this is being done. In short, what the project is doing, they are basically getting data on total damages, the costs of total damages, and they are distributing these costs across 5 capital stocks involved, and then using some economic modeling. This is also, later analyzed in relation to the loss of sectoral output and regional income, how it affects the regional income as well. And one innovative way how they were doing this is they develop an impact pathways. So that's the next slide, where you can see how each how the natural hazards actually related to the impacts, and how the direct and indirect impacts are distributed per sector. So I mentioned that there are 5 capital stocks they are looking at, and not all of this will be looked at because it's not really that possible because of the data availability. But when it comes to case studies and the local methodology, I think there will be more emphasis on these indirect impacts as well, which concern, as you can see, concern let's say culture or education and things like that. The next slide. And here is some preliminary results from the economic impact analysis in relation to the economic damage due to these 4 types of natural hazards. And here you can see an impact on the gross value added, let's say the loss due to natural hazards. And well, the map is quite self-explanatory. You can see that most of the damages are caused in the UK, Ireland, Central Europe, and Italy. And we'll have also that kind of maps for all other other natural hazard types. More also different time periods as well. The next slide. And as I mentioned, we also have 8 case studies, which kind of try to capture, let's say, the territorial diversity. And this was developed with the support of the project support team we have in the project. So so hopefully these 8 case studies will give deeper insights, in the economic impact of natural hazards and especially the different mechanisms and tools applied to mitigate the effects of natural disasters. So that's in short about the ESPON Titan project. And now let's have a look at ESPON SDG, which stands for localizing and measuring the sustainable development goals in cities and regions. And this is basically a tool under development. And I'll be able to show some screenshots, really, because it's not yet publicly available. And I'll give you just some brief insight on what you'll be able to do with the tool. So as you know, in 2015, the UN adopted 2030 agenda for sustainable development, and the agenda sets targets for 17 sustainable development goals with 169 concrete targets and 232 indicators. The EU has adopted this framework, and many institutions in Europe are trying to support implementation, and ESPON is also joining these efforts. So the tool needs to be obviously simple, intuitive, and user-friendly. And let's say to give you an example, what the tool could do for you is tool could answer the questions related to, let's say, is my region making progress towards achieving SDG targets? How does my region compare to other similar regions? Is my region lagging behind or leading SDGs? Which regions in Europe can be inspiration for my region? And so on. The next slide. And how can one use the tool? You can. It's built around 4 steps. The first one is you select a goal. After that, select one of the indicators that are available in the tool measuring this goal. As a third step, one can select a specific region one is interested in. And finally, one can compare this region with other regions or other similar regions. The next slide. And here you can see that is a short example on the goal number 4. And you can select indicators related to this goal, and you can also see showing development of the indicators. And then the next slide, you can choose, let's say, a region that you're interested in. Here you have an example of Austrian region, Burgenland, and you can compare this region with other regions using the selected indicators and understanding where the region stands in terms of implementation of the SDG. The next slide. We also have a library And in this library, you'll be able to find. Sorry, I think it's the next slide. I'll skip this one. No, the one previous. Sorry. Anyway, there's a library where you can find also similar experiences from other institutions, and in fact, this project is developed together with a group of stakeholders. Obviously, the UN, also the European Commission, and others. So there's let's say what others are doing in terms of SDGs, in terms of data and indicators, and so on. And now the next slide. You can also compare regions over time. And here you can see an example of comparison of two time periods, where in one time period, the region was doing better than in the other. So that kind of comparisons we also have in a tool. The next one, the next slide, we have also a radar chart. Well, basically, you can see, how close you are towards the implementation of the goal, and let's say, and it also shows your position in terms of the other, in relation to the other regions. The next slide. And the next steps, as I said, this is still under development, and this tool, the idea is that this tool is going to be tested by obviously by some of the regions, and it's also going to be presented in the European Week of Regions and Cities in October, later this year. And then hopefully by the end of this year, around September, I'll be able to present the final version of the tool. And here I have put also the developers of this tool, and the consortium is led by Technopolis group in France. So that's briefly it about two ESPON projects, which are related to the topic of today's discussion. So whenever you want more information, I have links here at the last slide. You can read more about the projects, and obviously feel free to contact me or my colleagues. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you, Zintis, for these nice presentations and on time. If the parts have Q&As, questions, please note them down. I would like to leave the Q&A after the first round of presentations. So please note them down, then afterwards we can come back to Zintis. So I would like to give now the word to Etienne Alot, I think I pronounced it well, who will speak about the urban heat island effects in Brussels. Can I give you the word, Etienne?
Yes, thank you. And I don't know how, do I have to manage my slide presentation by myself, or?
It will be done by LGI, I think.
Okay.
Isn't it